I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 9, and today we're diving into Gregtech ore processing and a little bit of fabricating. Hopefully you guys are ready. So jumping back into some more All the Mods 9, oh boy, we're jumping into ore processing. We actually have the ores. Last episode we set up a mass ore generator, so now we can actually generate ores with occultism. All of the ores we could ever want that can be now generated for our Gregtech needs. But today we need to process those things. And so we're going to have to use like 2 processors, I think, to at least get us through the first stage here, which is our LV stage, moving in on to the next thing, ultimately making these diodes and making these electronic circuits. So we've been working on this for a little bit, and these are the 2 things that we are going to hopefully try to get today that are going to lead us into making AEBF, which is our ultimate goal. And then also making arsenic dust, which leads down in here to all kinds of stuff. Gallium arsenide dust. That is a mouthful. So, ore processing. Let's talk about this. This recommends a macerator, ore washer, thermal centrifuge going into a macerator. That seems pretty straightforward, except these all produce byproducts as we start to process certain things. For example, this wants us to process bauxite in order to get the gallium, which comes as a byproduct of the ore processing operation. And the cobaltite, this right here, also comes from a byproduct of actually processing these ores. I think this one is more just the actual product of the ore, but it also has some byproducts that come out of using the regular process that it's recommending here, using water for processing. Now, from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like that's going to be too bad to do. So I have most of the items right here ready to go. So I have a macerator, I have my thermal centrifuge, I have my ore washer, and I have my basic macerator again ready to go. So I can go ahead, and I think I'm going to do 2 of these machines right here. I'm going to have a processor here and a processor here. So let's start off with our processor here. This is going to be the one that's probably going to process the cobaltite dust, and we're probably going to have more of these as we go along. We're probably going to have to start utilizing other rooms for this tier, ultimately making all of this our orange tier or our LV tier. We'll have to make more rings as we continue on. But this basic macerator then will receive items from the thermal centrifuge. So I can go ahead and put this on top, might as well, and stack them like this just to make them look nice and neat. Then we'll have our basic ore washer. And so the way it's going to go is items go into this macerator, go into the basic ore washer, then make their way into the thermal centrifuge, and then make their way back into the macerator. That seems pretty straightforward. Now I just got to get all of the logic cables set up for handling all of this. And that, of course, means more peer-to-peer networks. So I've made myself another peer, and I have it now linked to a cable that is on the other side. So we have a fresh 32 channels to work with over here. Now, this may seem a little crazy, but right now I am currently crafting up some very thick cables. Some very, very thick cables. These cables are the 16 times 10 cables, which should allow me to supply power to up to 16 of these machines, I do believe. So if I was to place the power node, for example, right here, and actually power it up, it should be able to supply these machines, and I can start to get rid of some of these cables, up to 16 of them per one of these 16 amp blocks, which I just got crafted up. So we are going to need to use this thick cable because this does support the 16 amperage. Otherwise, the cable could burn out, and I don't really want to deal with burning out cables. So if I go ahead and apply this here, and I go ahead and grab out my mallet to switch this to supplying EU, we can then go ahead and start to play around with more machines. And crafting this wasn't actually too bad. You just watched it craft up right there. So I've got to get this connected into these machines. Let's also get a point. I still wonder if this like regular gate is going to be more than enough to convert. We'll see. But I should be able to apply this here. And just look at that. That is very weird. I don't is this connected? I don't even think these are technically connecting. But these should connect. I think with this we do need wire cutters. So we're going to need wire or cutters. These things right here. So regular wire cutters. And I think we connect this here. And then I need to connect these together. it's really hard with these thick cables to see if they're connected or not. And then this needs to be connected here. Or this should be connected right there. That's connected, that's connected, that's connected. This needs to be connected. Okay. And there we go. Now we're getting power. Yeah, with these thick cables, it's really hard to see if they're actually connected or not. That is going to be my big complaint on this. Okay. We'll make sure this is applying and applying and applying. There we go. Perfect. So, the visual cues, thankfully we can see everything with Jade. But yeah, look how thick those cables are. And I think if I hold shift when I place, it will automatically supply those connections right there. So we can now see that that is now supplied. And if I break this, this should now be able to reach over here and supply power to these, so long as we allow them to connect. Ooh, the snapping sound is actually kind of nice. There we go. So now these are all connected, and these are back receiving power and receiving power. And so out of, so just to kind of make this make sense, we have 16 amps. They're supplying 32. I think the 16 actually supplies way more power though, than the base 32, like our other one, or 32 EU. So if I do 16, take a look here. So yes, this native conversion, it will do 32 EU. So yeah, it'll be a total of 2048 EU available, I believe, is what I'm getting out of that. Up to 16 machines we're going to be using this on. But that does vary because some machines use more EU and stuff like that, but this should work for 16 individual machines. Kind of cool. So currently, on this whole grid right here, we technically have 6 of the available 16 that is being used on these thick boy cables. All right, so enough of me just kind of playing around with this stuff. Let's actually put this stuff into action and start to process some ores. So one of the first ores that I want to get processing is through this processing line. And so if I look at the actual ore processing diagram, it shows me the ores that we can get this from. Just regular cobalt ore is going to be the place that we can get this from. So if I dive into here, let's grab some cobalt ore, and we do now have the cobaltite ore, and we also have cobalt ore. I'm going to go for regular cobalt processing, as it does feel like that's what we should be, even though we could just process, you know what, ore processing cobalt. You know what, let's just process regular cobaltite ore. That does appear to be the thing that we need. So this right here, not just cobalt ore. I think this even has its own processing diagram. Okay, so this is actually going to supply us with extra sulfur dust, it looks like, as a byproduct. And we should, I don't know if we get much from processing here with water, but we'll be able to find out by looking at this and going, okay, this goes into a macerator. The macerator has a chance of producing sulfur and also stone dust. So let this be our first thing we start exporting. So let's get an export bus, and we are going to automatically, right here, just start sending out this cobaltite ore. But we also need to start sending this to our main system. So this, I think, is going to help me kind of keep track of everything. So I think what I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to make this my ore board. So I'm going to send ores over here, and we will have those being extracted and sent to that storage system. By the way, we can always add some extra extensions to our storage controller. So if we ever need more places to send things, we can always do that. But there we go. We now have access to that ore, and we should now start seeing that our Applied Logistics system is pulling it out, and we are now ore processing it. Well, so you would hope. This device is offline apparently, because I'm probably missing something. And there we go. Fix my problem. Actually, just learned something new. Apparently, I cannot have a pier that is running off of what seems to be a peered connection. It did seem a little bit odd. I'll figure this out as I go. I'm still learning those intricacies of how the peer-to-peer networks work and its limitations. But here we go. So this stack now is producing that crushed cobalt ore. Now, what I'm thinking is I could just send this directly into the washer. And this is kind of going to be a test of that. So down here, we can go ahead and set this to export. And what I'm hoping is that this will auto export down onto the bottom here. We set that to auto. it will now take that and send that crushed cobalt. But there, like I said, there's a chance for that byproduct to end up in here. And that's what I'm a little bit concerned about. And I wonder exactly how that is going to work. But we'll end up seeing as this progresses along. If I need to, I can always have a way to extract that. Now, this is going to also need an export bus. This is our ore washer, and this needs water in this current configuration. So we just need to send regular H2O directly into this, because this is already supplying. And so the water is going to fill up in here, and then that should allow the washer to currently start to work. This, however, is going to need a program card. It does appear. So after we kind of dive through the peeking on this, we can see that on the crushed, we can take this even further, go into the washer, and we see on the water, it does have a program card of 1. So I need to make sure to put this in and set it to 1. And now it should start processing. And it is nice and slow, as you would expect. These are really cool animations, though. I really like the way they did the kind of machines on the face having these animated textures. It's really, really nice to look at. But this also says it has a chance of a byproduct. I'm not seeing those byproducts appear yet. Oh, there we go. We got our first byproduct. Now, this is where I am hoping that these things can't go into stuff like this. And hopefully it won't automatically try to send it, but we'll see. This is a thermal centrifuge. It actually looks like stone dust can go into a regular centrifuge, but not the stone one. So let's see. If we set this to output on the bottom automatically, is it going to try and send stone dust? It doesn't look like it is trying to send stone dust, which is good. It's just going to send that purified cobalt, which is what I want. But I do need to figure out what to do with this. And I think this just might be a simple case of putting a import bus on this side and then making the import bus only accept the stone dust that is being produced. And there it goes. It's now going in, and that is nice and filtered. And then if there's any other byproducts that start to build up in here, I would just add that to that import bus. Same for up here. I'll have to do the same thing. But look at that. We're now producing cobalt and the refined cobaltite ore. And there we go. Perfect. So then we just need to take this and send it down. But the cobalt dust itself, this, I believe, just needs to go straight in. It doesn't need to go in anything specific. It doesn't look like it. So yes, so this is going to be the same case. We're just going to basically take this refined, and it needs to go, but this needs to be imported on the side, and we're going to make sure that we are importing specifically this cobalt dust on the importer. Perfect. So that should accept that, and then everything else should be able to just auto output to the next machine. And that should be it, I think. Yep, and that is doing the processing of the cobaltite ore. Wow, I'm learning. Look at that. I'm learning how this all works. And this also has another chance of producing this, but this is all going to be immediately imported back into our system. So now I have myself some cobaltite dust. Look at that. Ready to go. And we've now successfully done this. But I also now need to sort of duplicate the whole setup here to make this gallium dust. And this leads us into this chemical bath as well, which now is going to require this material that we created with our basic chemical reactor. Well, to try to make this as simple as possible. So it does tell me that I can get this material here, and it says ore processing setup from a chance at the gallium dust when processing bauxite. But it says at a high voltage ore, this is a lot better of a way of getting it. But it says you can start by making the sodium, which we've already done in the chemical bath, and replacing the ore washer in the separate ore processing setup for a chance at this dust. So instead of the ore washer, we'll put this through a chemical bath instead for our bauxite production. So now I have set up our new stack of machines. Yes, so this is going to be another ore processor, but the middle one here for the bauxite, we're going to use a chem bath and utilize some of the chemicals that we've been generating over here for this operation to produce a secondary byproduct that is exclusive to using those chemicals. And then it's going to go down to the thermal centrifuge and then out processing, ultimately processing the final ingredient. So out here, I was testing out using a fuzzy card on this, did not seem to want to send any items. And I'm noticing this export bus, for some reason, on this particular machine, doesn't want to send like this one is sending. It's very odd. Oh, that's why it's not exporting. I'm a complete and total dork. Because I do not have the bauxite actually traveling into my system. This is something I got to keep in mind when shuffling back and forth between two different types of grids. So I just need to put this into my system just like everything else. And there we go. So let's add it into our ore stack. Boop. And that immediately got used, but that's fine. We can grab this here to send out automatically. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Just as, and then we noticed it is working. It automatically pulled. I was sitting there troubleshooting why this cable wasn't working. Turns out I just didn't have it sent over yet. What a dork I am. All right, so after getting that processed, we then need to take this, right, over. So if I look at the ore processing diagram, which is actually really nice once you figure out how to read this, it's pretty straightforward. We could just smelt and go straight to bauxite dust, which is one thing, but if we take a look at this ore stack, we have a chance of getting these byproducts, and I'm assuming there's going to be some use for them later on. The main thing we're trying to go for is this gallium. So if I follow the diagram, by going into the macerator, it then produces the crushed bauxite. That then leads into the chemical bath here, which we're going to provide it with two different things. We could use an ore washer or a chemical bath, or we can go into macerator, and you see it all splits off into different paths. We're going to be going this route because we're trying to get that gallium. And so we need that sodium persulfate that we have stored right here, and we have it in our network. So an export bus on this should be able to provide that sodium persulfonate into this system here. And then whenever we set up our system right here to automatically send out by clicking 3 times, it will now automatically send that in here to be processed. And that's where we're going to potentially get our byproduct. Now everything else is going to be the same as this side, checking out our byproducts and stuff, and there's our gallium dust. So with that, I then just need to make sure I have an importer here that is definitely collecting that gallium that's being produced, and it looks like we're going to have more than one thing in here. So stone dust is also another thing that's going to be imported in as well. And perfect. We are now pulling in those byproducts, and we are going to need those in the future for getting up to these diodes. Now, one issue that I am having with this ultimate setup here, even though it is producing everything I need, is that it's also producing that rutile, which apparently this is not fast enough to pull out. So it is going into the slot, but the machine is just way faster at sending the item, and it is trying to send this dust down here. So I think there is a way we can actually filter our machines within each other. So this is exporting, but I should be able to actually blacklist it from trying to export this. So I'll use an item filter here, and I'll change this to blacklist mode. And when I place that in, this machine should no longer, when I select this slot and put the filter in, it should no longer allow that item to be passed through into the next machine. That's what I'm assuming is how that filter is supposed to work. Otherwise, I don't think it would let you put that filter in there. So we were able to filter the machines within themselves on their export, which is kind of cool, actually. So now, while this is all processing and it's all hunky-dory and doing its thing, we are going to run, I think, into an issue where this is processing, and the importer here is going to get backed up because this just isn't fast enough down here, I think. I'll wait and see how this goes. Like, this one's already, for example, backed up and still running, though. So maybe that's not the case. But while that is processing, and we are producing those 2 materials now that we're going to need for ultimately making the good electronic circuits, I think I want to expand off my base here. So I am wanting to tap into this port, and since we're going to be needing multi-block space for this electronic blast furnace, I think it's time that we add another room, a large room. And this is going to be just like the main room right here. However, this large room will contain those multi-blocks and allow us to have multiple multi-blocks for use for right now inside of here. And all of the sides are exactly the same on this, so it doesn't matter which direction I put this. And then we can have these rooms technically linked. So if I do this symmetrically on all sides, we'll be able to get this all connected in with containers. So that should be pretty straightforward. And I think hooking this in, yep, that is the perfect height. And then I just need to move the Y over. There we go. And then we just connect that right on in. and put it into the schematic, and it should be ready to go. Oh, absolutely lovely. So back over here, I can just jumpstart that schematic cannon and get this bad boy launching some blocks. And can you believe it reaches all the way over there? That is such a powerful tool. Also, something to note, if you're playing in single player and you want to speed up your schematic cannon, you can actually change your schematic cannon options inside of the create configurator here. And I believe it is under gameplay settings, and it's under schematics. And then you have the schematic cannon. We should be able to send this. Let's see. I don't actually know if we can increase it anymore, but I'm sure there are stuff here. Oh, here's the schematic cannon. Yeah, here's the schematic cannon delay. Yeah, so we could set this to, for example, 1, if you don't want to block accelerate this. So if I set that to 1, and then we go ahead and save the changes, then go back, that should now be sending 1 block every tick. So you can see that is just a configuration change, and it's super easy to change that. So instead of every 10 ticks, that is now sending every tick. We can slowly watch this start to be built. Oh, it's gorgeous seeing this happen. So now with it all built, we now have a new room. What's all this about? Shall we call a meeting? I had to. It looked just like the space station. We're now in an Among Us game. By the way, if you want to do this yourself, this is a panic button from Security Craft, which is just kind of funny. And then down here is an industrial alarm from Mechanism. And this powers that alarm. And look at that. There we go. I love it. And yeah, if you really wanted to, I'd probably use some framed panels here to make this look a little bit nicer. And then also there are actually framed corners as well that you can make. And I don't know what the recipe is on those, but I'm assuming it uses these, possibly with a hammer and some funness. I'll have to look into this more, but they should be in here somewhere. Aha. Yes, they're called a framed corner pillar. Look at that. Oh man, I love this. This is going to be one of my favorite additions I've added so far. The panic button. But this is the room that I ultimately want to set up my multi-blocks in. So this is where we're going to have those EBFs hopefully set up, or maybe even multiple of them, because they are going to be a machine that we need to have items processing in. However, these machines are multi-blocks, so they do take a lot of items to actually build them. So speaking of those items, we're very close to actually having everything we need for this. So I should be able to now start to produce all of the things for the actual multi-block. The big thing being this Cupron nickel, however you want to pronounce it. This stuff does require bronze foil, also these wires, but also something new, tin alloy. So I do need to get another alloyer set up and start to produce those alloys. And then I need to turn that alloy that you see right here into a liquid using an extractor to extract it from the ingots. Okay, so running back over here, I have my alloyer set up, and this is where I'm going to be applying iron from our system. So regular iron ingots. I want this also to be round robined. So let's add some iron, and then we're gonna need tin from our current system. And thankfully I am feeding this over, so I will just send the tin over there as well. Let's click into here, tin ingot. And then we just need to bring this over and let it round robin into a basic alloy smelter. And there we go. Now we have this producing another new material for us, but we're not done yet. So it is producing the tin alloy ingots, but I then need to take it and I need to actually convert this. So I do want to keep these ingots. I'm assuming that this tin alloy is possibly used for other things. There are rods that are used to make things and stuff. So I'm going to keep it producing it, but then I'm going to take some others and we need to turn it into a liquid. Now on the basic extractor, I don't have power hooked to it just yet, but I am going to set that tin alloy to then go into here. Now I just got to get another cable connected up. So let's clear this out, and I should have 16 new tin cables I just crafted up. And then I will hold down shift, and then I have to go in with my cutters. And something to note, this back, apparently these corners are associated with the other sides, I believe. So if I snap that then connected this side over here, which is pretty cool. And you just seen that connected just by clicking on these corners. So these control the opposite side. So this would be how I would technically be able to disconnect from this machine back here, because I have no accessing face. So if I wanted to stop its power, I would just do that, and we'll start to see the power dwindle because I have now disconnected it. That's a nice little tip. And just like that, I now have myself a bucket of liquid tin alloy, which we're going to have to use in an assembler, because this is how we're going to be generating these copper nickel blocks inside of the assembler. Okay, so the next step, this is kind of what I want to work on getting sort of passively produced, is to make that copper nickel coil block. And this is kind of why we have that liquid tin alloy I was just working on. I now have an assembler set up, but I want to passively produce bronze foil and also the copper nickel wire. Wow, that is really hard for me to say for some reason. But this is a 2x wire. Now, this will give me a chance to show that we can use applied energistics to autocraft on export, but I don't want to autocraft on export this. So I don't want to do this. So instead, I want to use a wire mill. So I now have a wire mill set up, and this copper nickel or cupro nickel, I know I said it right before, but I want to have that going into a wire mill and then also going into a bender, because I believe we need both of these in order to make this block. So this needs bronze, but this needs the copper nickel. So the wire mill will take the bronze ingots. Let's go ahead and send that here. That should send bronze in, and that should start making those wires. So you see the wires are going in, and then we have our importer on the other side just pulling it out. Perfect. And then you can see that we'd have this connected in, and you can see how many machines we can actually hook to one single 16 amp energy converter. That is pretty awesome that we can have all these machines running. And now, right here, since this is all running down this assembly line, which is working towards the same process and same goal, right? So we have our alloy that's producing the tin, we have this producing the liquid. Here's our main assembler block, which is going to do the fully assembled part. And then we have our bender. Now the bender does need to have a program set. So when we take a look at the bronze foil, this is taking in bronze. We can take in plates, which will produce 4. Has the same amount of power and time usage, or we can just use the raw ingots. And I think just using the raw ingots will save us a step, so we don't have to go through the production of that bronze plate, which I think is fine. But that just needs to be set to the product or the processor programmer circuit number of 10. And then I can put that inside of that slot. And then we just need to send bronze over, which I should have an ingot in here. Let's see, bronze. Take a bronze ingot, send it back, and make sure we have that now sending into here. And this is going to bend the sheets into bronze foil for us, which is going to be what we need to then send to our assembler here. So now over here, I just need to make a autocraft for those wires. So let's go ahead and take that wire, and then we need to turn it into 2x inside of here, making a crafting recipe for it. And this will allow us to use our crafting card. So I'm going to place it in here, and now we can request that with our a crafting upgrade. So now for the fun part. Let's hope that we can get this to work, and hopefully we're producing this fast enough. So the crafting card definitely needs to go into here to request that craft. Make sure this is on round robin mode, and then I'm going to say send the fluid, then we're going to send the wire, and then send the foil. And that should hopefully balance this out. And here's where I mentioned the balancing is probably going to need to take place. I'm not quite sure exactly how that balance is going to work, because I don't want this to overfill and fill the whole thing with foil, and then we no longer have a place for this copper wire to go. So I might have to make another wire mill to be able to make sure that I am producing wires fast enough to complete that autocraft. But hopefully with it being in round robin, it does work. But notice already right here that this foil is increasing more than this. And I just hope that that's going to work out. And perfect. Yes, this is now assembling. It does look like it is filling like it's supposed to. However, I'm sure there are some logistical challenges that I might have in the future when it comes to dealing with this machine and how we can insert and make sure we guarantee that a slot doesn't get filled. I really wish I could filter these slots specifically and make it so that way only, for example, this wire could ever fill that slot. That would be nice, even if it was like an upgrade or something like that. But these are my complaints about a relatively old mod. I mean, I'm loving it though. I know there are probably a multitude of ways of doing this, but not keeping it in one solo column like this. I don't think this would be doable. I'm assuming that I'm meant to pull these in from maybe the machines themselves and use upgrades to pull from like the left or the right and then output from the bottom. But for right now, this seems to be working out pretty good. Now, there's still one more thing I want to do before wrapping up this episode, and this could also help with something like this. I want to limit the amount of the bronze foils that are being produced from our machine here. And I think the best way to do that is by limiting the import bus. So we can actually control the import bus by putting in a redstone card in here to give it some redstone functionality. So we can tell it to always be active or active without signal. So when it receives a signal, it will shut off, which I think is probably the one we're going to work with. And then I'm going to carry some channels from over here because this is getting a little low on channels, I think. But we have just enough. We have one. So let's go ahead and use that. Let's use that one extra channel that this has available to us. And what I want to do is I want to cobble together a level emitter. So yes, I do need to have this running through here. But the cool part about a level emitter is you can place it directly into the cable transition right here, which is kind of cool. And so I'm going to place it right here onto the cable. Now, this has some options, and I can put this bronze foil in, and we can control something. Emit when levels are above or equal to the limit. So emit when levels are above what we set. And I think that's by default perfect. And that allows us right here to have that active without signal be the first thing, be what we need. Because whenever it is on, it will know, like active without signal. When it does receive a signal, it's going to shut that bus off. So we can then set it to say, hey, if there's 64 in or equal to in the storage or above this amount in the storage, then shut the importer off. And right now it is shut off, meaning that the import will not take place, meaning that inside of here, this will start to dwindle down, and that will save us so much. It'll be pretty nice. Now, this machine will still be full, like you see right here, but I could detect how much is in this machine. And that's a little bit different. I could basically say, hey, and detect it from the machine itself here, but I would have to kind of cobble together some crazy little setup that I really don't want to use. So for right now, I'm just going to use it like this, just so we don't overproduce. And I probably should do it for this as well, but it does seem like all of our cables are getting used up. And well, with that, we are one step closer to the EBF. Yes, this is taking quite a long time. And the only way for you guys to let me know that you're enjoying this content is by clicking that like button and also commenting down below and letting me know what was your favorite part, or if there was a way that I could do something better. I love learning from you guys, and yes, I do read the comments. So thank you so very much for those of you who have been commenting. I really do appreciate all the tips. It really has helped me a lot, and I am learning so much through the amazing Gregtech community, and I didn't know how nice you guys were until now. So don't panic, and be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. It's now time, by the way, to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing things is going to go out to, if I spell things right, going out to Slick Rick. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support and becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. I thank you guys all so very much for watching today's episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And of course, as always, thanks for watching. Bye!